Going too fast. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Good morning. Welcome to our Sage Intacct Release 1 2025 webinar. Looking forward to sharing with you guys today some of our exciting new release highlights from the Release 1 2025. So before we get started, wanted to go ahead and go through our agenda for this morning. We are going to kick off today with some brief introductions. We're then going to move right into the Sage Intacct Release 2025 highlights. And then we're going to spend a few minutes going through a live demonstration of some of the highlighted features. We are then going to wrap up today with an exciting presentation of the Vena budgeting and planning solution. All right, so we'll jump right into introductions. For those that don't know me, my name is Heather Broberg. I'm the Director of Accounting Technology Services here at GRF CPAs and Advisors. GRF CPAs is based out of Bethesda, Maryland. We serve clients in the DMV as well as nationally and internationally. For those that are new to our firm, we have been in operation for over 40 years, and we serve a wide range of clients covering not-for-profit as well as for-profit, many schools, and also government contractors. Today we have a special treat for you. I'm joined by Jason Chen. He's a solutions consultant with Vena, who will be providing a demonstration of the Vena budgeting and planning solution at the latter end of our webinar today. Quick housekeeping notes for everyone. This webinar is not intended to be financial or legal advice. It is simply for educational purposes. And we have a lot of exciting content to cover. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. Okay, we are going to start today with talking about some of the enhancements to the fixed assets management module. For those that are leveraging this solution today, this has been a coveted ask for quite some time. So it is exciting to see that Sage Intacct has now released this functionality. The newly released enhancements allows for the transfer of existing assets. This really provides users the ability to change an asset's allocations, which allocations in the fixed assets was functionality deployed in the Q4 release of 2024. So the allocation functionality is fairly new, and now an enhancement to that allows for you to change the allocation in the event that it was done incorrectly or it just needs to be changed due to business use case. This functionality also allows for you to basically reclassify dimensionality. So if the dimensionality for an asset and the depreciation should need to change in the future, you now have the ability here, as you can see on my screen, to transfer an asset and reclass to the new dimensionality. Okay, let's move in to talk a little bit about some enhancements in accounts receivable. One of the most significant enhancements is the ability to add custom fields to AR statements. Most are aware that there is custom printed document template ability on AR statements, meaning we can customize an AR statement within Intacct. But what we now are able to do as of this release in 2025 is we can add custom fields to that printed document template. Those custom fields can come from 3 different objects. It can come from the customer object, the invoice object, and AR adjustments. So any custom fields that you've added to one of these 3 objects can then be added to the AR statement. You can use this for bringing in just custom information, any invoice data, AR adjustment data. And the way that we do that is by editing the printed document template, as you can see here on my screen. And you would want to go ahead and check the Include Custom Fields checkbox. This is then going to allow you to edit the printed document template and include the custom fields as needed. Okay, let's move right into accounts payable. One of the key enhancements in this release is the ability to approve AP bills by vendor. What I mean by this is Sage has now given us the ability to basically deploy vendor-based approval policies. The approval requests are then sent to the bill approver that you specify at the vendor level. In order to do this, you are going to turn on vendor-based approvals within your accounts payable bill approval policy. And then you will update the bill approver at the vendor level to indicate the user that should be approving bills for that specific vendor. Move forward just one slide to show you some additional information here. The bill approver should be selected on each vendor. You can do the assignment of the bill approver either within the user interface, which I am indicating here. You will go in, edit your vendor, then move down to the billing details. You will see a bill approver field. All of the users within your Sage Intacct environment will be listed here, and you can indicate the user that should approve bills on behalf of this vendor. If you need to do this in mass, you can also do it through a CSV import. If you download your vendor import template, you will see a column that has a header of bill approver ID. You will then put the user ID here, and you can import that in to update this field and do it in mass. Something to remember is if you do not indicate a vendor's approver, the bills for those vendors will be automatically approved. All right. The next enhancement I wanted to talk about is accounts payable automation with purchasing. This is something that we talked about in the R4 2024 webinar. It was released in beta for testing. So during Q4 of 2024, there were many users that had begun testing this functionality. It has now been released for general use. That means that anyone leveraging the purchasing application can also leverage the automation within purchasing. As we know, previously, the AP automation functionality was only available within accounts payable. Most of you know this as AP AI functionality. But now it has been deployed to be used in purchasing as well. The AP automation with purchasing lets you define how incoming AP invoices are mapped to existing source transactions in a one-time setup. So I'm sharing here in this first screenshot the purchasing configuration page within Sage Intacct. From this, I am able to, by entity or at the top level, depending on where you are managing your transactional data, identify both the target transaction, which most commonly would be either a PO receiver or a vendor invoice, and the source, which is the transaction it should be matched to. What this allows you to do is email in vendor invoices through the AP AI functionality. You can see on my screenshot here, the entry point would be an email, or you can upload directly into the system. When you do that, the AI-powered tool is then going to read that vendor invoice. It's going to identify the vendor, identify the GL code. It is also going to identify dimensions, and then it is going to match it to that target transaction, which is basically your PO matching. It will then convert your PO as needed. And then once this is done, it is going to move that vendor invoice into a draft vendor invoice. The system takes the draft vendor invoice and places it in a queue so that the accounts payable team can review all of the data from the vendor invoice, ensure that everything is validated and accurate. Once validated, it will then be posted as a posted vendor invoice, and the PO will be converted as needed. Something to note here is that as the team is updating the draft vendor invoice, making corrections to both the header level and line level information, Intacct is going to use the feedback to update the AI engine. What that is doing is updating the machine learning model so that it will improve your future predictions. That works on whether or not you're leveraging the AI functionality in accounts payable directly or here within the purchasing functionality. In order to begin using this, you have to first subscribe to the APAI automation. So if that is not something that you're subscribed to today and you're interested in doing so, please feel free to reach out to me, of course. I'm happy to talk through that. Once that is turned on, you will then be able to leverage the configuration also within the purchasing module. Okay. One of the new enhancements to the general ledger functionality is the ability to disallow direct posting at the journal level. Previously, direct posting could only be limited at the GL account level. If you would like to leverage this functionality, you're going to edit, of course, the specific journal that you would like to turn this on for, and then you will click, as you see here on my screen, the disallow direct posting checkbox. What happens after you check that checkbox? A few things. One, memorize transactions that you may have previously created, and even recurring transactions are going to be turned off if they are associated with that journal, because they will no longer be able to be leveraged because direct posting will then be turned off. This means that, as you're seeing here in my screen, if I were to turn this off for the accounts payable journal, I can still post to the accounts payable journal, but it would only be through subledger activity. So any entries that are coming from the accounts payable module would be able to post to this journal, but no other entries from a journal entry would be able to do so. Once you turn this on, you will also not be able to import journal entries into this journal from a CSV or create them via an API. And any users that are looking to turn this functionality on for a specific journal would need to be a business user, and they would also need to have permissions to list, view, add, and edit journals. As long as these two things are turned on for a user, they should see the disallow direct posting checkbox on the journal and can go ahead and turn that functionality on. All right. I am absolutely excited to talk to you guys today a little bit about the Copilot functionality. We briefly teaser introduced some of this in the R4 2024 webinar, but now there is some of this functionality that is generally available and some that is an early adopter that I'm going to talk about today. The first one, as I'm sharing here on my screen, is Copilot variance analysis. This is now generally available, which means you do have the option to leverage this at this point. The Copilot variance analysis really provides insights into your budget and prior period differences. It's going to allow the business leaders to look at discrepancies, address spending concerns, and really hone in on the budget versus actual analysis information. You can see here a little snippet of what that Copilot functionality will look like within the Sage environment. There are notifications coming from this functionality that are designed to keep budget owners in the loop. So whether or not it's a timely update or an on-demand review, they're going to have an option to drill into the report insights, as we see here, and see exactly how your budget is doing, including all of the detailed breakdowns and visualizations. You can see here that it's giving me some analytics around each of the buckets that are in my department analysis report and how I am trending. If you're interested in trying this, it is doing a phased rollout, meaning it's going to become available to all customers in a phased approach. You'll be getting an email letting you know that it's now available in your environment. But if you'd like to try it right now, you can complete this form, which we are going to be sending out this presentation post the webinar today. There's a URL right here on this page. You can click on this, it will open a form, and it will let Sage know that you'd like to go ahead and participate now, and they will move you up in the rollout. Super exciting functionality. Another one of the Sage Copilot enhancements is going to be the Copilot Close Assistant. This one is an early adopter, meaning it's not being generally rolled out yet. I do anticipate a general rollout later in 2025, but the actual date has not been provided yet. If you do want to participate in the early adopter, just like on my prior slide, there is going to be a link here in the complete this survey button. you can go ahead and fill that out and request to be part of the program that is able to leverage the early adopter functionality now. So let me talk a little bit about what the Copilot Close Assistance does. It is going to simplify navigation for close tasks in both the subledgers and GL. Also going to provide some insight into close status across all of your entities in one summary view. So you can see over here on the right-hand side, it is showing me what I need to do in each of my modules and in the general ledger in order to get the books closed. The early adopter program is going to give this functionality to all of the early adopters, and the early adopters are going to be able to try it, leverage it, provide feedback, and work closely with Sage Intacct and enable really in an effort to ensure that this functionality is rolled out in a manner that works for all participants. So please go ahead and click on complete this survey once you get this if you'd like to be a part of that platform. Okay. All right. Next on the agenda today is some reporting enhancements. The biggest reporting enhancement in this release is variance analysis reports. Intacct has deployed 3 new reports that are out-of-the-box reports right into your report center. They do need to be installed in order to become available. You can install them right from the Quick Start library within the Report Center. So you'll go to Report Center, click on Quick Start Library, and then go ahead and install those. In order to run them once installed, the users will need to have the various analysis run permissions from within the general ledger permission set. And then there also is the ability to, okay, perfect. To, as you can see here in my secondary screenshot, add in specific filters or groups. Even though this is an out-of-the-box report, you have full ability to do that. We are going to take a look at these 3 reports in detail, as well as how you turn them on when we get to the live demonstration portion of our webinar today here in a few minutes. Okay, and by a few minutes, I meant momentarily, because we are actually going to move right into that now. What we're going to look at within Sage Intacct is the disallowed direct posting to journals that I talked about, as well as the accounts payable automation for purchasing. And then we will wrap up with the variance analysis reports. I'm going to go ahead and remove my PowerPoint here. And then we will jump in. Get back to it. And I keep moving it. All right. All right. Sharing my Sage Intacct demo instance here. We're going to go ahead and jump right in and get started on those 3 items. All righty. So first and foremost, I want to walk through how we set up and the disallow direct posting and the impact that has on your environment. So if we go here to our applications, we're going to go ahead and go to General Ledger. I'm first going to show you what it would look like if you had not yet turned this on, which is what you see today. If I go to the General Ledger and I come to my journal entries and I go to create a journal entry, we will use the accounts payable journal for reference, since that's what was in the slide deck earlier. If I do my drop down here, you can see that I have, actually, we'll just go ahead and use the accounts receivable journal since it's first. I have a list of my journals. Accounts receivable journal is here. Natively, we normally wouldn't post to this journal, which is why the disallow direct posting functionality exists, but I do have the option. Now, if I don't want my users to have the option to post to that journal, I'm going to go ahead and go to my journals within my setup page, journals, and then I'm going to locate that accounts receivable journal. Click on edit. And then I am going to select that box for disallow direct posting and click save. As you can see here, I had already disallowed direct posting for accounts payable, which is why I did not see it in that drop-down list, which is actually exactly what I wanted to have happen. But now we're going to go back and take a look at what that looks like if I was to post a journal entry now. Now, if I come in here and do my journal selector, I now do not see AP or AR. You can continue to do that for every journal within this list that you would not want a user to post a journal entry directly to. That is really going to clean up this journal selector when journal entries are being posted and ensure that ledger journal entries are not being posted to via manual journal entries, which for those that have been in Sage Intacct for quite some time, that has been an ask for a really long time. So it's super exciting. Okay, let's move into the accounts payable automation for purchasing. I'm going to go ahead and go here to purchasing. I have AP automation turned on already right now. So I'm going to go ahead and go to purchasing and click on configuration. In order to configure this functionality, scroll down to my automated settings. You are going to go to the automated settings. This is the screenshot that I was showing earlier on the slide deck. This is where you are going to set up the relationship between the two documents that should match. In this case, I have said that my target is a vendor invoice, meaning I'm going to receive a vendor invoice automatically into my system, either via upload or an email. And when I do so, I would like Sage Intacct to match it to open purchase orders. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that functionality looks like. There are two different ways to get a invoice into the system. Go ahead and go here to my automated transactions list. There are two ways. I can upload. So if I have received the invoice directly and it has not been emailed into the system by a vendor, I can come in here and say upload. I can browse for my file, can go ahead and grab my file, and I can import it here. Click on upload, it will then bring this in. The other way that you would do it was via an email. I've gone ahead and sent one in via email already. We can see here on my screen that I have email as the source of this vendor invoice that has come in. But it's actually a very simple process to send the email. Your email address, for those that are already using AP automation, you know what your email addresses are. But if you are not yet using it and you have it turned on for the first time, you will go to your accounts payable configuration, and then we will go down to our AP automation section. And under email services, we can look at what the assigned email address is that Sage has provided us. So we are transacting in this environment at top level. So this is the email address that I would use, but you can see here that every entity within your environment can have their own email address. You can provide this out to vendors. Vendors can email directly into this email address. In this case, I am going to use this one. Very, very simple to send in. You can see here I have an email on my screen. Email this bill directly into Sage Intacct. And when it comes in, it is going to come in draft mode. I have already emailed it. Looks just like this. It is also telling me that it was already matched to purchase order 67. The AI powered solution was able to read, we're going to look here in one moment, the PO number from the vendor invoice, and it knew that it should match it to that purchase order. So if I click edit here on the drafted entry, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to take a look at the attachment. So as these are emailed into the system, Sage is storing the emailed attachment here. We can see that there is a PO number. It was PO 67. So Sage was able to leverage AI to find the PO number and know which PO it needed to match to. It was also able to do several things. It determined who the vendor was. And if your vendor did not exist yet, then it would not determine that. It would leave that blank. It was also able to determine a due date and fill out a wealth of information down below. This information down below, most of it was pulled from the related purchase order. So it was able to bring in from PO 67 all of this information and pre-fill it for me. At this point, I can make changes, override information, so on and so forth, and then go ahead and post it. There's also an option to change to an AP bill. What this means is if you have a vendor invoice that comes into the system and it is not related to a purchasing transaction, Very likely you may be using POs for some purchases and not for all. In that event, you can say, go ahead and change this to an accounts payable bill. It will unlink it from this purchase order, and it will just move it right over to accounts payable and post it as a bill. And then you are all done. You do not need to go to AP or do anything else. I'm going to go ahead and just click on post here, post this entry. Now, it wants me to fill out the rest of the information. We'll leave it in draft. Once you're all done with it and you post your entry, as with all vendor invoices in purchasing, it is going to move over to accounts payable as an accounts payable bill and be ready for payment. All right. Let's go ahead now and take a few minutes to look at the functionality around our variance analysis reports. I'm going to toggle here to my report center. And as indicated earlier, these reports have to be initially installed. So to install the variance analysis reports, you're going to go right up here under New Report, under Financial Reports, and you can click here on Quick Start Library. And then you can search for variance. It is going to bring up all three of these, and then you're just going to hit the Install button. That is then going to make all of these available within your report center. I've already installed these, so we'll go ahead here and look at them from within my favorites deck. You can see down below, I have the 3 variance analysis reports. All 3 of these reports, they are out of the box canned reports, but you can see here that they are fully editable. You also have the ability to duplicate them, make changes to them, do other versions, meaning right now we have by standard a variance analysis, one that is then expanded by department and one by location, but perhaps you want one that is by projects, by grants, by cost center. You can go ahead and duplicate these and create the other renditions of these as needed. I'm going to go ahead and run this first one so we can take a look at what these look like live. All right, this is going to open up our variance analysis report. It's going to give you several pieces of information. You can see here that we have an actual year-to-date value, and then of course the corresponding operating budget value. Here in column 3, Intacct is giving us our actual minus budget values, and of course some very pretty color coding that is indicating a few things to me. Red, largely a deficit, and then of course it's using some pink coloring and some greens. It is doing all of this for you by standard, and then that it's also pulling in our budget variance at a percentage level, and then of course including some of your prior year-to-date differences. So here I have my prior year-to-date actual, and then year-to-date versus prior difference, and then of course the variance in a percentage. This again is out of the box reporting. So you do have the ability, as with all, again, to duplicate, edit, manipulate. Maybe you want 2 years back as well, but by standard, this is built out for you. Let's go ahead here and click on the by department analysis so we can see what this one looks like. Okay. So very closely the same thing. The only difference here now is that I have departmental analysis. And then in your location one, I'm going to go ahead and click edit so that I can show you a few things that I was alluding to earlier. If we go down to our filters, you now have the ability here to set your location groups. So you can go in and say, I only want to have this for the operating company, or you can turn on your prompts to allow users to select this. I'm going to go ahead and run so we can see what this looks like. And now I'm getting a variance analysis just for my 100 location. So very exciting reports full of great tools, a really good kind of look into what Sage Intacct is doing with the budgeting analysis, Copilot functionality. I'm going to go ahead here and bring my slide deck back up. And we are going to move right into our Vena piece of our presentation. So at this point, I'd like to welcome Jason Chen. Jason, can you, oh, yeah, you can hear me just fine.
Thanks,
And
Ken.
I will, yeah, perfect. I'm going to hand the time over to Jason, but before I do, wanted to just give you a brief introduction of the Vena platform for those that this is new for. Really, if you're looking to automate your budgeting and planning processes with a tool that easily integrates with Sage Intacct, Vena could be an ideal solution for your organization. It helps the FP&A team really meet business needs with the only AI powered complete planning platform. It's also going to work in conjunction with all of your Microsoft tools that you're already leveraging, which I'm sure Jason is going to talk to today. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the time over to Jason.
Thank you so much, Heather, and thank you, Jira, for having us today. Now, I do have Carrie on the line here from my team as well. Carrie, are you able to present on your side?
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. I think I can. I wanted to show, hello everybody. I don't have, I think I can present. I'm on my Mac. Let's just see if I can do this. I couldn't get in on the regular piece, so let's just see if I can do this. Can you all see my screen? No. Anything? Nothing. Okay. Jason, I'm going to have to defer to you for today. It's just
No
not
problem.
working for me today. Technical issues on my end.
So that's no problem there, Gary. So we'll just jump right into the demonstration after just some slides here. Now, in today's demonstration, we are going to be simulating someone named Frank Jones. I want everyone to think of Frank as a budget owner, someone who has to complete an operating expense task in the Vena platform. We'll see how that's managed through the workflow using Excel as a front end for input as well as reporting. And then we'll move into all things reports. We'll take a look at financial statements, some visualizations, as well as some AI empowered tools that are going to allow you to explore and analyze your data. All right, so let's close out of these slides and jump right in. Now, Vena is a web-based platform. We are going to be logging in today as Frank using an individualized username and password. We can set up single sign-on if that's more convenient, and we are compatible across Mac, PC, mobile, and tablet. Now, when we log in today, we're going to be experiencing Vena from an end user perspective. So this is the list of tasks that Frank has to perform within the Vena platform. Now, they're all tied to this 2024 annual plan process as new tasks get added or Frank gets added into additional processes. All of the tasks will be listed here in priority. So we've got the overdue items at the top, the ones in progress or are on the horizon next, and finally some view-only reports that are available at any time. Now, today we're going to be focusing in on expense planning, specifically operating expense. And you might notice that there is an Excel branded icon next to this task. That's because when I check this out or launch a file from the Vena platform, I'm going to actually open up a brand new Excel file onto my desktop. This is because we've found that most finance professionals are still using or prefer to use Excel as the main tool to analyze figures, to perform back of the envelope calculations even, or create their models. And so we have integrated Excel with our CubeFlex database to be able to pull any data sets that we need to. Looks like this is giving me a bit of an error here. So let me just close this out and refresh it. Of course, it happens during the demo.
Jason, while you're doing that, for those that are on the call, I've had system issues today, so you just get a black screen with my name. I'm the partner account manager for GRF, and the whole purpose of this is to really anoint you into the awareness that Vena is a very strong partner with GRF and the opportunity that we have to offer a really rich cloud-based, purpose-built FP&A solution that is very much native integration to Sage Intacct. Also, Microsoft, we have leaned into Copilot. We have a purpose-built FP&A Copilot built in as well to the system. And definitely have multiple customers who use this, particularly within the non-for-profit space, which I know, Heather, is near and dear to your heart, at least for the time being. We do have multiple industries that we cater into, but certainly very strong in not-for-profit. And because we have a very unique partnership with Microsoft, we have Teams integration coming. We've already done a PowerPoint integration, so it just makes everything really much easier. And because the Office of Finance is pretty attuned to the Excel world, as Jason will show you, it's an interface, it's a view into, it's a lens into really a really rich back end that's really powered by our CubeFlex database, which is multidimensional, and you'll see some of the elements that you can do. So that gives a little bit more context. I was looking to show you a little bit more, but that's okay. Jason's got it covered.
Oh, perfect. Thanks for that, Carrie. And as you can see here, we've pulled up this template and there's no data in it. That's because, as Carrie mentioned, really we're using this as a lens into your data in our CubeFlex database. And we're going to use the choose box here to define the selection of data that we want to interact with. So here we can pivot between our budget, maybe starting off with a budget and moving into forecast, or stress testing assumptions across different what if scenarios. Now you might notice over here on the left that the template is already selecting the New York entity in the D10 sales. That's because Frank is responsible for that department and that entity. So there's some guard rails, some tracks that are guiding him into this process. Now, when we apply this selection here, we'll load in the data and not only just the financial figures, but also things like your metadata, the hierarchies, or in this case, the chart of accounts. Okay, perfect. Looks like I've already got some budget inputs into this, but as you can see here, we've loaded in the chart of accounts, and this can be synced in with Sage Intacct. And we've got a direct connector to Sage, which allows you to simply enter in your username, credentials, etc., and pull in any custom objects or tables, whether it's transactional details, trial balances, or subledger data as well. Or in this case, things like the hierarchy. So this can be synced in as we get added, as new account codes get added into your chart of accounts. They can actually be synced into any of the Vena reports and templates. Now, this is a budgeting template, and although I do have some inputs in here, we can re-enter them again. And because it's Excel, your users are going to have an easy time leveraging direct inputs. We can even leverage the drag and drop functionalities within Excel. We can add in formulas as well as copy paste. When we're ready to commit these details back into the database, all we need to do is save the data. Now, when I was an implementer, I had a test that I always loved to do, which was simply just deleting and refreshing the data. Looks like it's just giving me a little bit of lag today. Here we go. Okay, so we can delete this row and then refresh it. And this is really just showing that these figures have been committed back into the database. They're going to be pulled into any subsequent reports and templates. Now, outside of just simple direct input, we also have what we call line item details. I like to think of this as planning at a placeholder level or a description level or a level below our GL. In this case, I can add on additional line items such as let's go promotions 1, 2, 3, and maybe promotions 9, 8, 7. And as I key in these details, you might notice that the subtotal formula is automatically updating. Additionally, one step further, if I try to key something in on this cell, it's going to give some data protection to avoid some fat finger mistakes. So outside of just direct input, we also allow for other styles of planning, namely drivers. So in this case, we can plan our office equipment with a year-over-year increase, or computer supplies with an FTE equivalency, or simply split a yearly amount evenly or seasonally. Just down here below, we can really bring in any sort of KPIs and drivers. These can be inputted into the system, such as these blue cells here, or alternatively, we can sync with other systems, such as your HRIS, bringing in your FTE equivalencies or other metrics, such as an employee survey. Now, coming back up above, one of our most popular drivers is this 10% year over year increase, and showing that we, of course, are going to sync with your actuals with your Sage Intacct instance. But if we are to use this driver, and Frank is ever curious about this 9200 number, instead of having to go back into Sage, download and extract, we can actually double click on any number within the Vena platform. So using our drill transactions feature, we can actually, again, double click on this 9272 number and pull out the transactional records that are syncing in from Sage Intacct. This functionality, again, is going to allow your end users to see this granular information right at their fingertips. This feature is available throughout Vena, where we can double click on any of our cells, whether they're actuals or budget values, and really understand the granular transactional details, or in the case of budget inputs, as we'll show eventually, some auditability. All right, coming back over to this main input page, we've only got one more budget input left to make on this. So in this case, I know that Frank has a number of promotions that he's running in December. But when I try to save the data here, we're given a warning. That's because on any of the accounts exceed a 20% year over year threshold, we want our users to make a comment. So in this case, we'll say don't save, and we can say promotions in December. All right, so now that we've successfully saved the data, added those budget inputs back into the database, we can start to explore some of the auditing features within Vena. The first one is actually our audit trail. So this is going to show all of the changes that have been committed back into your budgets using this specific template. But going one step further, I can actually pop out a brand new workbook. You might notice that it says book one up at the top, and it's going to actually highlight all of the cells, all of the inputs that have changed. So I can even click on it and it shows me what it was before and what it is now. So this is just a sample of some of Vena's auditing features. Just know that all of the inputs, whether they're your actuals or your budget inputs coming from your end users, it's all going to be tracked, and we're going to be able to follow the audit trail to understand the who, what, where, when. Okay. So closing out of this budgeting task, we can finish this input. So now that Frank has completed his budget, it's next we can start to explore some of the reporting that would come out of that. I think the first next best step would be to take a look at some of the financial statements, Excel-based, of course, that can be generated from the system. Now, within this document, you're going to see your standard income statement, balance sheet, cash flow, as well as a very interesting variance statement that we'll take a pause at. But as this is loading in, the choose box here is going to be a little bit different. That's because we're giving the ability to select which specific entity or specific department. But uncovering this, just want to highlight that this is what we call a hierarchy within Vena. And these hierarchies can be synced in with Sage Intacct, or they can be customly created so that we can see that New York is rolling up into US and Canada, or have these alternate rollups or alternate hierarchies. From my time in implementation, I've seen entities by tax, legal by legal, or in this case by function, where we have New York rolling up into sales and distribution. So any of these custom rollups, any of these hierarchies can be created and managed using the Vena system. Now, we'll apply this selection here, load in our income statement here, fairly standard, 12 months of budget, as well as a mix of actuals and forecast. And I've shown how we can double click on our actuals, uncover those transactional details, but just taking a look at our budget details as well, we can scroll down, take a look at our general operating expense for December. In this case, we will drill down into it and uncover all of the budget inputs that have been made into the system. Because it's Excel, I could now put this into a pivot table, do some additional analysis. I can leverage things like the filters to analyze the information. And if I'm ever curious about a number, for instance, I'm Frank's manager and I'm looking at this 80K number, instead of having to to understand the history of this, talk to the specific budget owner, I can actually just double click right here in Vena. So I can use our drill saves functionality and understand the who, what, where, when of this exact data point. I can see that it was done by Frank Jones, using this operating expense template. But right from this report, this financial statement, I can actually download the details. This is going to pop open, again, a brand new book and show me a snapshot of the input that Frank had made. So again, within Vena, we're going to be able to double click on all of our figures, again, whether they're actuals coming from our Sage Intacct instance or they're generated within the system. Okay, we'll skip over the balance sheet and cash flow just in the interest of time, but just want to quickly pause on this variance statement. Now, Heather had shown a very similar structure as we're showing here, monthly, quarterly, year-to-date view across the P&L, but the flexibility of Vena's integration with Excel and the Qflex database allows us to quickly pivot between, let's say, an actual and budget or forecast, or simply toggle between a different month. We just make that selection and then refresh the data. So this one variance report can be used today, used tomorrow, next quarter, next year. Additionally, with our choose box, we can pull in different slices of data, whether it is the consolidated entity view or just a single entity or a single department within a single entity. Again, this one report can be flexibly used across the department and through time. Okay, so the next tab that we have here is our dashboard tab. Now, with our PowerPoint integration, we can actually integrate any of these charts, graphs, tables, cells, KPIs into your PowerPoint decks. We'll skip that again in the interest of time today, but that is a very popular feature that our clients are using to present that information such as this into their PowerPoint decks. But instead of PowerPoint today, we're actually going to explore another feature on the Vena platform, which is our Insights feature. This is essentially Power BI, but embedded into the Vena platform. And the advantage here is that you don't need a separate admin, you don't need a separate license, you don't need a separate integration. Really, it's all handled using, again, your Vena Qflex database, where we are integrating with Sage Intacct, bringing in your data and integrating and syncing it with a visualization layer, again, embedded within Vena. And Power BI, the game-changing element here is really allowing us to interact with our data. So in this revenue by entity map, I can hover over it, see some commentary that is generated about this location, as well as a breakout of the revenue across different account groupings. If I wanted to, again, double click onto this, I can actually drill down on that US location, see all of the KPIs, charts and graphs update. Going one step further, if I wanted to drill through to the specific New York location, I can actually click on a single month, and also from this layer, also download the transactions coming from Sage. So definitely a theme here, the ability to double click, but your data is going to be integrated not only with the Qflex database into Excel, the front end, but also into these great, amazing visualization layers. Now, one final demonstration from this Insights would be taking a look at this revenue breakdown tree. Admittedly, even with Excel, even with PowerPoint, something like this is hard to reproduce, where if I wanted to explore my revenues first, let's say from a country perspective, and then from there into a city, and then finally into, let's say, a revenue account, I can easily take a look at my subscriptions for the US and my New York. But if I'm in a board meeting or I get presenting to stakeholders, I can quickly pivot to my Canada location, specifically Toronto, and my professional services, and analyze my revenue performance there. So the interactiveness, the tools, the new widgets and graphs that are available in this Power BI are really going to unlock a lot of capabilities, analysis, and presentation of your data, again, synced with Sage Intacct, as well as any budget inputs. Okay, the final thing we're going to explore today is our Vena Copilot. And this is really from our partnership with Microsoft, where we are co-developing these tools with their teams. We've got very special access to their developers. And this tool is going to allow you to interact with a large language model where we can query or ask it, what is my revenue for 2023? It's going to be able to understand my question, break apart that natural language, and turn it into a query to pull out data from the Vena platform. But it can actually go one step further. We can actually ask it to perform some operations or some steps too. So in this case, what is the variance of actuals to budget for May 2023? In this case, we're pulling two queries, budget as well as actuals for May 2023. But it's also going to perform some calculations as well, saying that the variance between actuals and budgets is X. Now, going one step further beyond this, let's say that we wanted a report that is can be generated right from this agent as well. We can actually launch our reporting agent and ask it to generate a report of revenue by entity for 2023. And it's going to not only be able to understand that natural language, but it's going to be able to generate a Vena ad hoc report. So this ad hoc report can be downloaded onto our desktops, and it should have revenue by entity for 2023. But we also get to play around with our ad hoc reporting tool, which is going to allow you to flexibly pull any data and any structure from the Vena ecosystem. So as you can see here, we've got revenue by entity for the year 2023. If I wanted to, let's say, drill down on this revenue figure, I can again pull out those details. But our ad hoc reporting tool is a very pivot table-like experience where we can drag concepts such as account and entity into the rows or a year into the columns. Think of page as a filter. But I can actually interact with, let's say, my chart of accounts, my hierarchies in the Vena system, where let's say I wanted to create a gross margin report, I can quickly add in elements of my chart of accounts and then just refresh the data. If I wanted to, let's restructure this report, maybe do revenue or entity first and then by account second, we can quickly do so, refresh the data. Again, if I wanted to, let's say, turn this into a more traditional P&L report with the full year, I can quickly pull in either the monthly level or the quarterly level, and then again, quickly come back and then just refresh this report. This can actually be saved onto your desktops. You can open this right from your desktop and re-enter your credentials and re-access this information. This ad hoc reporting tool, which is now connected to our Copilot agent, is really bringing us to a world where we have agents pulling our data, agents creating our reports, and eventually we will have agents that will allow us to interact with our budget as well. All right. So this is really where all we wanted to show you today. We have so much more in Vena that we can explore. Vena really is a platform not only for budgeting and analysis, but everything that extends beyond that, whether we're connecting to additional source systems or we're doing beyond budgeting, such as consolidations or account reconciliations. So if there's any additional interest, please reach out. I'm happy to book a private demo, one-on-one demo, or answer any additional questions that you might have. If you do have questions, please feel to add them into the chat.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate that. All right, you guys. Well, with that, I would like to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. Should you have any follow-up questions, as Jason alluded to, feel free to reach out to us. And again, thank you so much for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.